not pointed at you yet.
He's pointing over this.
Did you see any of that iBook stuff? Did you download it?
Okay. Bring the meeting to order. It is January 23rd, 2012. This is a meeting of the North Reading School Committee. First on our agenda is public input. If there's anybody that would like to be heard from the audience, I recognize Ms. Castro. She'd come up to the microphone and tell us what you want to discuss.
Okay. Thank you. Deanna Castro, 9 Bridal Way. This is not the first time that this conversation has been had, and it may very much be a follow-up to a conversation that Barbara Thorstad, who is a member of North Reading United for Education, might have had with Superintendent Willis and perhaps others of you after the June town meeting. The topic is really about communication and prioritization of civic participation and community participation in town elections and town meeting. And just a couple of things that I wanted to bring up as a parent and as an education advocate and as a community, as a citizen in the community. I went to the town calendar today to find out, what the communication is about June town meeting. And neither June or October town meeting dates are on the town calendar. As you know and are painfully aware, on the North Reading Public Schools District calendar, there are no entries for not only town elections, but for school committee meetings and other important dates, unfortunately, even within the school system. The only place that the June and the October town meeting dates exist, believe it or not, that I could find today easily, is in St. Teresa's calendar. And that is because we have been working with as many organizations over the years as we can to try to eliminate conflicts with these types of things, and we're making some progress.
Someone like myself would never find that date.
Right, and see, because I teach CCD every year, I know to look there, but that's not really where I want to find the information. So that's just the beginning of my conversation. As a parent of students and kids that play sports, on June town meeting last year, these are the things that as a parent I was conflicted with. There was Major League playoffs for for baseball. There were soccer tryouts for the fall for youth soccer. There was a grade level meeting for religious education that I was supposed to be at 7 o'clock. I was supposed to be at town meeting at 7 o'clock as well. And there was a senior prom that if my child was a senior, I would have had to deal or try to juggle all of those conflicts, or many of those conflicts, at the same time. So I would say to you, when we're voting on something so important as our children's education and a budget that is so large relative to the community, I don't want to be conflicted. I want to be sitting in that seat at 7 o'clock knowing how important that vote is going to be. But I can't really say to my child, who's worked all season long to make it to the majors, that's 6 teams on a Monday night at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I can't be there. Or Dad will take you home, but Dad needed to be in the seat next to me. Or my neighbor can take you home, but I need that neighbor in the same seat. So that's just a problem that needs to be dealt with. So the other part of it is, if we're going to offer town meeting childcare to get people to come, we need high school juniors and seniors available to babysit for younger siblings or for neighbors. So if they have hours of tests that evening or projects due the next day, then they're also not available to us. So I'm just asking for your strong consideration to consider that important dates go on every calendar. I'm going to the Board of Selectmen and making the same case at 8 o'clock tonight. And that you entertain the idea of moving the senior prom to maybe a day later, but I know it conflicts with the sports awards. And also that you might consider a no homework policy on that evening, because it would be great for every kid to go home and say, I have no homework tonight because you need to be somewhere else. And, Jen can babysit for Sean because she doesn't have to worry about it either. Or she could babysit for a cluster of neighborhood kids because she doesn't have a project to do the next day and 4 hours of homework to do that night. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. I think those are all the notes. And just one other thing. When I went to the district, middle school, and high school websites today, I was looking for information as if I didn't know as much as I know about the secondary school building project. and the only place the information exists is way down the bottom of a scrolling screen under quick links. It's not under school news on the right-hand side, which is the first thing I see, and it's not under school events. So I just wanted to strongly recommend that that needs to be front and center in 3 different places, or maybe on every single one of the school web pages as well. Because I know that we all care very deeply about this project, and we want to make it successful, and I think better communication is the best way to go about that.
So Deanna, there's 2 points. One is obviously for all of us who have input into scheduling these meetings to give more consideration to what else is going on. That's the first point. And the second point would be to get the meetings out there as early as possible so everybody can make plans to attend those meetings.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, well taken. Anybody else want to comment on that?
I don't think we have any control over any private organizations that want to hold events on that night. I don't think we can move the prom because it's Monday of that night, and that's all graduation week, and I just can't see moving the prom to Tuesday night. Overall, I think your ideas are good ones. I'm discouraged at how few people attended our 2 forums. I know other members have different opinions of this. I think we could put the information, we could glue it to everyone's eyelids, the inside of their eyelids, and they still wouldn't show up. So while I agree with you, we need to tell as many people, I don't know what more we can do to get people to take an interest. I think we do as much, almost as much as we can, clearly not as much as we can. Things are in the newspapers, they're in the Patch, they're in the center of town, the SSB website. It's mind-boggling to me. That's all.
No, but
I think a certain number of people are going to participate, and that's about it.
But the fact of the matter is, even if you just take the people that want to participate, it's helpful for them to know well in advance when the meetings are scheduled, and they shouldn't have to dig around or go to St. Teresa's calendar to find the dates of those meetings. So
And
even
if
for
they
those
vote
who want
for the March 19th town meeting tonight, we know this far in advance. So if you send home a no homework policy and all those types of things, then we can begin to prepare and to prioritize and communicate that right now, tomorrow.
Okay, well taken. Kathy, did you want to comment at all?
No, I think some of the points can easily be addressed. Again, I did work with Principal Bernard about the senior prom as they were planning for this year, and the date and the place had already been identified.
Right.
And with the semi-formal taking place this month, it was felt that they wanted to continue to have the prom that week. So Mr. Bernard and I spoke about when the promenade is at Ipswich Park, and that's at 5 or 5:30, and town meeting starts at 7, and parents have no other responsibilities beyond the promenade at Ipswich. So we're hoping that parents will make the effort to go to town meeting that night. We have already had conversations about other events taking place and not scheduling them that night. So that's already underway.
Great. Super.
Deanna, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll certainly
Appreciate
take that under consideration. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you all very much.
Next, Mr. Simons, Jeff.
Evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to follow up on kind of a line of discussion that took place at the forum last week about the new high school and the middle school. And perhaps, I'm sure you all are quite aware of this, but it wasn't quite clear to me. So I did a little research and had to do with the gentleman's question about feeling that the scope of the proposed project was too large, and was wondering if it could somehow be brought down by about the difference in cost between the cost of not voting for the project and the proposed cost of the project. And is there, in other words, is there a kind of a scaled down version that we could come up with that might be a little bit less expensive? But I think part of his assumption was that the proposed new school is a lot larger in terms of the number of classrooms than the present middle school and high school. And there's been the previous forum, there was a line of questioning that was similar to this, which was, okay, you build this brand new school, how many more teachers are we going to need to fill up these classrooms? So that kind of troubled me, and I didn't, in the top of my head, I didn't really have a good answer. I didn't know the facts. So I spent some time with Mr. Bernard and Ms. O'Connell to go over the proposed number of classrooms compared to the present number of classrooms in the school. leaving aside the fact that the rooms are going to be larger and that there's going to be much nicer facilities as far as the gym and the auditorium and that sort of thing. But just classrooms per se and science labs was my question. And talking to them and actually kind of looking at the maps and the layouts of the new versus the old school, the high school is going to have, excluding the science labs, is going to have, in fact, exactly the same number of classrooms in the current school as is proposed, 41. Clearly, there's more labs in the new project. That's, of course, one of the major goals we're trying to accomplish,
Yeah, but I
to
think
go
the
from 2 to
labs,
6.
Jeff, I think the labs are 4 instead of 2. Am I correct on that?
6.
6. Okay.
6 instead of 2.
Okay, 6
Right.
instead.
So
that's the
clearly an
change.
increase of 4 there, no question about that.
But that's absolutely necessary.
That's absolutely necessary, and that's part of what prompted that design. But the rest of the classrooms are exactly the same. The issue is, though, that the modular classrooms, which is, let's see, I wrote down which was which. It's something like 20.
There's 18 modular classrooms.
It's about a quarter of the. I can't remember which is which. One's 15%, one's 25%. But it's a significant number of modular classrooms presently in both the high school and the middle school. So, although it may appear that it's got a lot more classrooms, in fact, you're making permanent these classrooms that have been temporary for years that we will need and will continue to need. So the number is not changing, but we're making them, of course, larger, technologically current or advanced and permanent. So the modulars certainly get replaced. The inferior spaces that we have for one health class and one art room get replaced by actual classrooms that are designed for the purpose. So that's part of the proposed design as well. But turns out the conclusion for me is that the number of actual classrooms is exactly the same at the high school, plus 4 more labs than we presently have. In the middle school, it's actually a reduction of 3. They're just bigger. So, of course, here you're kind of having to deal with the same footprint. So if you have to make classes larger, then basically there's going to have to be fewer of them. So that's the conclusion there. But I don't think that perhaps in the discussion that it was emphasized strongly enough. Just looking at the glance of the whole plot plan, it looks like you're building something that's so much larger than we presently have. So the conclusion for me, and I'd like to get your follow-up or emphasis or agreement, is that in terms of the high school and the middle school, we're actually having fewer classrooms and certainly more labs, but generally the staffing needs are going to be exactly the same. I think that was a big point that a couple of people are trying to get at.
And people always ask that, if you're going to have, they think there's more classrooms, well, how are you going to pay more teachers? And I think what we had said to them was the number of teachers is more a product of enrollment than it is of classrooms availability. So, but it's good to emphasize that, Jeff. And just for clarification, Jeff is talking about the differential in the cost to the new high school core facilities and renovated middle school would be approximately $60 million for the town. If we don't do the project, then the improvements, repairs, and even general maintenance we're going to have to do to upgrade the buildings is going to be approximately $49 million. Right. So that's where the $11 million differential comes from. But for that $11 million, we're getting a whole lot.
Yep.
Anybody else wanted to comment on that? Or?
No, I went through the same programming of the schools and how the classrooms are going to be set up and where they're going, what we needed, and matched that up against what MSBA said we could have or should have. And watching that, it was kind of amazing to me that I found the same thing you found by at a later date that we really weren't adding classrooms. We were adding great lab space, which we don't have now. And that was the principal difference in the classroom type spaces.
Right. And you just reminded me, Cliff, one thing I want to add too. So clearly at the high school, 4 new labs in addition to the 2 that we already have. At the middle school,